good morning, afternoon, evening, middle of the night, whatever it is, where you are. I thought I'd carry on from yesterday's chat. Started talking about your jobs, didn't I got most of my chores done in the house. But yeah, I thought I'd talk a little bit about jobs that I've had since leaving school today. Right, but got with it, haven't we? Trying to keep these videos shorter. Hold your interest, Mrs. and Mr. of course. Yeah. Right, let's get on. I also chipped a cup. So, two things to hide. What happened was, I was putting the cups away up there, and at the same time grabbing a plate from there which had been washed and dried, and I forgot to let one go before I did the other job. And the cup fell onto the plate and smashed it. And it's only 7:30 in the morning, so I'm doing well, you know. That's the thing, you know. Sorry, I was moving things while I was talking to you. TV remote. I'm watching Top Gear, but from about 1976. I'm doing that in between doing my chores. The thing about us older blokes, we get older. Of course we do. What I mean by that is that, you know, Cheryl's 52, I'm 66, and I think being in a relationship, a marriage, for a lot of people where the bloke is older, comes with a lot of advantages. You know, you've now have got all the nonsense out the way by the time you're saying to your 40s. But as time goes on, the bloke can retire. Maybe pensions other than state pensions have not been set up properly or whatever it might be. So finances can become an issue. And the woman, most cases, the woman finds she has to keep working. And the bloke finds himself like me, you know, no real hobbies or interests, as it were. Can do a bit of DIY maybe. Maybe their house is finished, so there are a lot of DIY jobs to do other than maintenance. Yeah, and it can be a bit of a strain at times, can't it, for relationships? Ours isn't, we're not there at all, but I can see how it would do. I need a hobby or an interest other than cleaning the house. I do have to learn how to use 4 things in the house. The microwave oven, the air fryer, which everybody seems to have now, they do seem to be good. More importantly, and the biggest challenge, the washing machine. It's weird, is our washing machine. Gone are the days. I used to like twin tubs. You know, you put your washing in on one side, it washed. And you filled it up out the tap, didn't you, with a little hose pipe. And then you emptied it, as it were. And then you put it in the other side, and it used to spin. Then you'd hang it out on the line, or if it was winter in the UK anyway, you put it on the clothes hose and it used to dry. Things were simpler back then, weren't they? Now, you've got to have a degree in IT and engineering just to set the washing machine. Cheryl will show me. And there must be a simpler way around it then. what I see her doing with it is all sorts of bells, whistles, squeaks and buzzing. When she does it, beep, beep, boppity, beep, beep, you know. And it's only my socks and tracky bottoms and a t-shirt. So I've all that to learn, and I will get around that lot. But yeah, it's a funny thing, as you get older, blokes, we get to a point where we either can't do much or we don't want to do much, or what we want to do we can't do. And of course, if the woman is, like in Man and Cheryl's case, 14, 15 years younger, she's got a whole load of life ahead of her. And working life, you know, Cheryl's always worked, by the way, since leaving school. And before, she did a few Saturday jobs and a paper round. But, yeah, so that's where we are at the minute. I've still got to get my head around this. What is it that I feel that's wrong? Just, you know. But I know what it is. I should be the breadwinner. Should be. But I'll bring other things to the party. And then I'll settle into it. Then I'll get myself a routine. And then I'll be okay. You know, it's just this strange, or what feels like a strange situation at the minute. Yeah, it's nothing really. No more than that. What I do want to do is to make myself another workbench, a proper workbench in the garage. But I'm going to need to order a bit of timber for that, so I won't do it yet. But that'll give me, you know, 3 or 4 days of something to do. Something manly to do. I need to be doing something manly. Bloke. Yeah. I think I do, really. Anyway, I'm going to get on. So far, I've broken a cup, or chipped a cup, smashed a plate. That plate shattered. I think it was one of these Pyrex plates. It was like glass to pick up. So we'll see how the day goes on and see how many of the things I can do wrong and break. Anyway. Yeah, I'll be back in a minute. Don't worry. Now, I've left them keys out to remind me that I need to open the side gate. So I can sort the cardboard boxes, which have got to go in the recycling bin. Yeah. I only mentioned the keys. It's so that I don't forget, really. Don't worry, I'm not starting to forget things. It's just that I'm starting to forget things a bit. That's because I don't have a routine as much as anything. I do like a routine. Smoking. People asking me if I've stopped smoking yet. God, it makes you miserable. Yeah. Stopping smoking, I mean. Smoking makes me miserable because it does smell and it costs a lot of money. But not smoking makes me miserable. I don't know which is the worst, the two evils there. Well, smoking, obviously. I've cut down a lot. I have cut down a lot. Yeah. And the cigarettes that I am having, Cheryl rolls me for them. We've got a machine and that's a machine, by the way. Cheryl rolls them for me because I can't do that. And I'm not going to be paying £10 a pack or more for tailor-mades, you know. Yeah, you can't get 5-pack drive tipped anymore. Used to get those at school when we did normally. Not at school, we didn't. Well, you could buy cigs at school off other lads. I used to sell them now and again. But yeah, on the way to school was a little shop, and you could buy 5-pack drive tipped. Or, like I used to do, single ciggies. You could buy a cig. Yeah. Cheryl and Willow back from their walk, morning walk. She's having to go out earlier. And it's getting dark in the morning, earlier, as it were. It was, it was still dark at 6:30 this morning. Nothing wrong with blokes cleaning. In fact, at Blue Circle, they had a team of blokes who would clean all day. That was their job. It was industrial cleaning. I went there on shifts, I think I mentioned that. And it was a place where chalk was taken out of the quarry and sorted and milled. So it was ground up into powder and then milled through an earth-swept milling machine. Basically, you applied heat at one end and a draft through this huge rotating drum, massive, probably weighed 50, 60 tons, and ground up chalk and anything else that was in it, like flint, would come out the other end. Then it'd go through all sorts of different processes, cyclones, all sorts, and it would go into different grades of powder. And it amazingly, in aluminium until I got the job there, but chalk was used in all sorts of things. Drugs, paracetamol, aspirin, that sort of thing. You can imagine it in there. But tyres, carpets, emulsion, all sorts. It was a good job, that. The reason that they had full-time cleaners is that to keep production going, if you can imagine, say 1,000 tons of talcum powder being processed, and I'm thinking about, the actual factory side of things, where all the chalk was ground up and blown about, etc. And then at the other end, put into bags. So 1,000 tons a day of talcum powder moved about. That was a lot of mess. So there'd be a team of blokes there sweeping, cleaning, hoovering. Because if they didn't, by the end of the day, production would be stopped for the next day. So, yeah. So it was quite a good job, that. We had a canteen, so they'd serve you meals. I worked shifts. Shifts were chosen for you, but you could choose to work 6 to 2, 2 to 10, and then nights, 12-hour days and 12-hour nights. Either way, it was good money. And after the other jobs that I'd had in the building trade, jobbing, domestic building, there is some good fun on those jobs, but they don't pay well. And I was in a builder's merchants, serving bricks, sand and cement drainage to the building trade. That was a good job, and that paid okay, but I wanted a better job, really, and eventually I got one. The other thing about the building trade, if you're in the domestic building trade, sometimes, more than often, the work's inside. In the builders' merchants, the work was outside all day, every day. And in the winter, that can get heavy, The work was heavy, carrying 8 stone bags of sand and cement about most of the day. But cold weather, ice, frost, snow, and then in the summer red hot, So, yeah, I enjoyed the work, but I got a good job eventually at Blue Circle, and I enjoyed that. Right, I'm going to hoover up bedroom. Right, I got hoovered up. I'm going to push you back to start again. There we are. I got hoovered up. As you do. I got warm doing it though. A bit shaky as well. Right. Anyway, I've got a dust. This is exciting stuff, innit? I was talking about some of the jobs I had. I've had a lot of jobs. So I left school at 16, but before I left, about 4 weeks before, I got a job at a wood yard. I basically lied and said I'd left school and they could just give me a job. You could in them days. Talking here about back in the 70s. But anyway, I found out I was still at school. So I had to go back to school for a few weeks and then I left. I did have some bits of jobs before that, what lads and lassies have. I had a paper round. Did a bit of cleaning, tidying up in a cardboard printing works it was. That was all right. These were night jobs, Saturday jobs, that sort of thing. But I suppose my first official job, even though I was paid in cash, was for Pickford's Removals. That was a really good job. I was there about 8 weeks while they had work, paid in cash. I was 16, so it didn't matter too much. Well, for a short time anyway. And then I got a job at Builders Merchants. And I have to say, I've reached, as I say, 66 years old, and I've probably had 50 jobs since I left school. But those lads that I worked with at that Builders Merchants, J.R. Young and Son, Clough Road in Hull, proper Builders Merchants, we served builders, bricks, everything. I mentioned it earlier. But that group of lads was the best lads I've ever worked with, anywhere. And I've had some good jobs since then and worked with groups of good lads since then. But as a team of blokes, and it was blokes, working in the yard and warehousing and also, at the counter at the desk, they were really good blokes, yeah. I then left there because, I don't know, I get restless, I suppose, I was at that age. And I went into the domestic building trades as a labourer. That was all right. And we'd turn up, it was a 3 gang, so there was the boss, who was supposed to be a bricklayer, but not very good. And then there was the brickie, John, he was a good bloke. And me, and I'd labour for the pair of them. Went to a house once. I've hundreds of these stories, but they more or less all amount to the same. And we would start work at 8 o'clock, and the boss had been round, quoted for the job, give him a price that, yeah, great, and we'll come next Tuesday, sort of thing. And we turned up, and we was outside, it was a summer's day. What we had to do was plaster out, put a coat of plaster, as it was then, onto the back of some wardrobes that they'd had put in, this couple. And we sat in the garden. We'd made ourselves a cup of tea in the kitchen. We sat in the garden drinking that, having a laugh and a joke. I'd mixed up a bucket of skimming for John, who was also a plasterer. And and we had a couple of cigs, did the crossword in the sun, very challenging, and off we went, and we set up to go upstairs, and off we went upstairs, singing as we went up the Airy Dancers, if you've heard of that. It don't matter if you haven't. And then we went into the bedroom, and there was the couple sat up in bed, startled, and it was about 8:20 by then. They should have been up and about, shouldn't they? But yeah, we give them a bit of a shock. They were naked as well, goodness sake. Anyway, yeah, so I did the domestic building. I did that for about 4 years, and over that period of time, I guess I learned bits about all sorts of, trades. Plastering was my favourite. It was also the hardest. I suspect that I was taught that first because nobody else wanted to do it. I didn't mind, that was good. Yeah, so after that, where did I go? Oh, I got the proper job at Blue Circle. I've talked about that. I was there about 6 years. Took redundancy, and because I volunteered, I got the extra £1,000. So I left there with about 6,000, and I'd been on good money. And I got a job at a wood yard, another wood yard, 3 weeks. And then I got probably one of the best jobs I've ever had, one of the best paying. And that was at a smelting works. And it was for base metals, so not ferrous metals, not iron, aluminium, tin, that sort of thing. And we were smelting metals into alloys. And it became very apparent very quickly. Remember, this was almost a new start business. And so when you get into them, if you're good at something, they tend to pick up on it and you can move forward. Well, I could drive any piece of plant, forklift trucks, anything, JCBs. And that was from my time at the builders merchants. So I got on the forklift truck. I was also really good at organising things. So I got warehouse supervisor. There was only me, I supervised myself. Eventually one thing led to another, and I started organising and managing all sorts of areas. Laboratory downstairs, mucky end of the laboratory, because we were melting metals and grinding them up and what have you. But anyway, and storage, and then sampling. That was good. I'll try and explain sampling quickly. So the many statues around the world are coated in gold leaf or something else. Way back when the statues were done, they had a good layer of gold on them. And what companies would do, they would clean these gold statues. I was in Hull, the job I'm talking about was of King Billy on a horse. Anyway, what companies would do would go in and they'd sandblast them off. Nowadays, I think they use plastic beads, but so to clean these statues, they sandblasted them. And the blastings, what came off them, would contain gold. And I had the job of sampling this. So it was in a 1-ton bag, the gold, and of course the sandblasting material, whatever it was. And what you do is you reduce it down proportionately so that you end up with, say, a 1 kilo bag out of a ton. But that 1 kilo represents the ton of material. and then you'd take it back, as I did, to the lab, and I'd process it and isolate the gold from the sand and other materials that had been used. And then what you could do was price up the 1 ton bag. I didn't do that, bosses did that. But that was a good job. I enjoyed doing that, and I enjoyed working at the plant, but gosh, it was bad for your health. We were dealing with all sorts of metals, lots of precious metals that you'd know, others that you might not, like indium and palladium maybe, but lots of hazardous chemicals, cadmium being one of them, many others, but just as an example. And it was heavy work. The one thing throughout my working life up until I was about 38 years old is that I'd done heavy work. Builders merchants, really heavy, building tradies generally speaking. The base metal where I worked and sampling, that was really heavy work. Forklift trucks and such like, but anyway. And I only left that company because my boss was setting up a little company in the middle of Hull, but for a company that was based in New York. And I'll tell you more about that maybe on the next one. But let's just say that took me to Poland and Russia and New York, all over the UK as you'd expect. And I was buying redundant computers, not for the processing power of them, but for the precious metals contained on the circuit boards and within the circuit boards. Anyway, I might talk about more of that in the next one as we go along in this. How's this Mike on Monday doing? It's different, isn't it? Somebody did say, can you talk about your job? So I am doing. So, yeah, we'll see where things go. A little insight into some of the jobs I've had. I will do a few of those if you're interested. Let me know. Other than that, I, of course, will see you on the next one, I hope. Take care until then. I'll keep going at these. We'll see. Let's see where they go. Yeah? Okay. All right. See you soon. Bye for now.